Hello, hello. This is Andrea Eppolito. Thank you for joining in. This is my very first podcast, the first one that I'm ever taping for myself, at least. I'm super excited. This is something that I've been interested in doing for a really long time. I've had the opportunity to participate in other people's podcasts, but this is the first one that I'm filming, so it's really exciting. So however it is that you found me, I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you very much. I called this the beginning. I think it's where everyone really starts. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to meet me, understand a little bit about where my absolute love and obsession for weddings and celebrations and lifestyle came from. And hopefully you'll like me and I'll like you and we'll date around and flirt a little bit. And I'm excited about where this could go. So first things first, I am a Las Vegas-based wedding planner. I came to Las Vegas in 1994. And despite the fact that this was the wedding capital of the world, it is not where I got started. My story really began when I was about 13 in a really unlikely way. We had a cousin and she lost her father unexpectedly. And it was a terrible and tragic thing, but she was having a sweet 16 party. And despite this loss, the family decided that they were still going to move forward and host it. I remember driving into Brooklyn from Long Island and hearing my father say that planning this Sweet 16 was the thing that gave her father the most joy, that it was the event that he was looking forward to the most, that he lit up every time he talked about all the things that he was doing for his little girl, and that he continuously said it was a dry run and a rehearsal for her wedding day. So it was confusing to me that despite him not being there, that they were still going to do this. But my father said, when bad things happen, you need to have something to look forward to. And this is a major milestone in her life, and it's good that they're benchmarking it. So we go to this party. I'm not really sure what to expect. It's a side of the family that I haven't really spent much time with. And we're sitting at the table, and all of a sudden, the door opens at the very top of the stairs, and she comes out. And she is in this frothy, it was the late 80s, early 90s, but it was just like this big white dress. And she walked down the stairs and everybody clapped and everybody cried. And I had this really strong, visceral understanding of the fact that life was going to have some really hard and terrible moments, and that there was going to be heartbreak, and that things were not always going to go well, but that you needed things like this to look forward to. You needed to have something that made it worth it. And that when the hard times came, you needed to have something to look back on and a memory. And this event for her was really both. It was the memories of all the time that she spent with her father planning this. And it was something to look forward to in those really kind of tough, dark hours for her. And when we left, I was determined that I was going to have a Sweet 16. It was the only thing that I really cared about. And I got a binder because way back when, this is before the internet, that's what you did. So I had a 3-ring binder and I was cutting out fabric swatches and color samples. And I was kind of writing out a narrative for the day. And I was physically cutting out pictures and dresses and thinking about who I would dedicate each candle to. And about 2 years later, I'm still carrying it around and I'm at a friend's house. And his mom kind of grabs it from me and says, "Let me see this thing that you're always carrying around with you." And she flips through it really quietly and she pushes it back across the kitchen table and says to me, "You should be a wedding planner." I didn't even know that was a thing. It was shocking to me that that was a way that you could make money because, to be perfectly honest, I thought I was on the fast track to be a lawyer, which looking back on it is interesting. I really easily switch between both sides of my brain, the really cerebral and the really artistic. But I loved telling stories. I loved reading. I loved photography. I loved designing events. I loved planning these parties. And so when I first kind of sparked that this was a thing, I was like, well, okay. She, it turns out, owned a limousine company. And every weekend, the family would have to put somebody up at kind of a wedding trade show where my job was to wait for people to walk in and I had them fill out an index card while I rewound the VHS tape all the way to the beginning. They had to watch the tape, and then they walked around kind of going from table to table, picking up pamphlets about limousine drivers and florists and, bakeries. And my first day there, I'm sitting at the chair and this woman comes in and she says, I have 18 people in my bridal party, 9 on his side, 9 on mine, plus us is 20. How many limos do I need? And I was 15 and I had no idea. I was like, I don't know. And she said, well, hey, can you tell me if a party bus is big enough? And I don't know. Can you tell me about this? I don't know. The entire day I felt like an idiot. And by the time my father picked me up, I was in tears. I was certain that I was going to get fired. And I begged him to please take me to the bookstore where I used the $20 that I had made and I bought wedding magazines and I bought books and I bought anything that was in there just to try to keep this little weekend job. And I went home and I read everything and I made notes and I was tearing things out. And by the time I went back, I knew just how many people a stretch limo could hold. And I knew that she was never going to get all 20 people in the party buses that they were offering at that time. I had learned about different flowers and different roses. I had gotten a handle on seasonality and I became obsessed. This was my most favorite thing to do because I'm helping people in love and everybody's happy and everybody wants to have this beautiful experience. And there was this level of control that I could bend the universe to their will and really mine and create something that had not been seen before, that hadn't been offered. And it was just the greatest fun I ever had. So I quickly shifted my focus and said, okay, I want to be a wedding planner. Marcy Bloom was out there, and being in New York and on Long Island, I saw what she was doing and I had seen her in the press and I thought, this is going to be a thing. Like, I can do this. So when my family moved in 1994 to Las Vegas, I thought, well, this is going to be perfect. I mean, I know all these things about weddings. It's the wedding capital of the world. It's going to be super easy. I can't wait. And I got here and nobody would hire me. And looking back, I mean, why would they? I was 17 years old. I had never worked in a chapel. I had no quote unquote real job experience. And I mean, I wasn't even old enough to gamble or to drink or to buy a cocktail. There was no reason whatsoever why all of these people would have hired me. But I was determined to break into the field in any way that I could. So I got a job as a hostess at a restaurant that did a lot of large parties, so I could learn the process of setting up and the food and, what you would put on a menu if you were having 50 or 100 people. I went to UNLV where I majored in hospitality, and I hung up signs in the Mormon student area that said, I will plan your wedding for free. Not being Mormon, I'm not even allowed on the grounds and in the church. But I knew that they wanted to get married. I knew that they were young and they didn't really know where to start. And I knew it was a place that I could go and work. So I started planning these free weddings. I was working parties after school, and on the weekends, I was devouring every magazine that I possibly could get my hands on. And when I was 21 years old, I lied my way into the Bellagio and I convinced them to hire me as a wedding coordinator. It meant that I needed to drop out of UNLV in my senior year in order to go and work for them. And my mother cried, but my father